Samuel found himself in a predicament as the clock struck 11 p.m. He hadn't made up his mind about returning to his village just yet. Although it wasn't too far away, a mere 2.5 hours by car, he couldn't decide whether to go back that night or wait until the next morning. The fact that his son and wife had already returned a week earlier due to his wife's sister's upcoming wedding added to his dilemma. If he were to go back that night, it would be pointless, as the wedding ceremony was already underway at around 9:30 p.m. He had promised his wife Sarah that he would join her in the village that night, but unfortunately his unfinished business with a contractor prevented him from doing so. The contractor had extended an invitation to dine together at a restaurant, and declining it wouldn't be the nicest gesture considering their long-standing friendship. Besides, the wedding ceremony wasn't of utmost importance to Samuel, since it was his wife's sister who was getting married. If it were his own sister, he would have felt obligated to be there as a guardian, especially since their father had passed away long ago. Hence, Samuel accepted his friend's dinner invitation, where he and 5 or 6 other business associates gathered, eager to acquaint themselves with young professionals like Samuel. During the meal, they all engaged in a lively conversation about an intriguing TV story. One of them even shared a chilling tale about their friend's encounter with a vampire on his way home. However, Samuel remained skeptical. "Come on. In this day and age, where would you find a vampire?" he questioned, unconvinced by his friend's account. "I can't say for sure, Mr. Samuel," his friend responded with a mischievous grin. "But my friend swears he saw a woman trying to hitch a ride on his motorcycle. As soon as she got on, she suddenly veered off course, causing my friend to fall off," he explained, defending the authenticity of the story. Samuel couldn't help but be amused by his friend's narrative. Even in the modern era, there are still those who believe in the existence of vampires, disturbing as it may seem. However, to spare his friend's feelings, Samuel chose not to engage in further debate. Instead, he simply grinned, acknowledging his friend's tale. "People always encounter vampires in that area," his friend added. Curiosity piqued, another friend inquired, "Is there a graveyard nearby?" "Indeed, there is a graveyard," he replied, his expression turning serious. Samuel couldn't help but grin once again. Even in this modern world, there are still individuals who hold firm beliefs in the emergence of vampires. It's a different story altogether in villages, where lush trees, towering coconut palms, and a serene night ambiance create an atmosphere that can easily instill fear in the faint-hearted. In the urban setting, that particular ambiance has vanished. The streets are illuminated brightly on both sides, with cars speeding by until the break of dawn, creating a constant buzz as trucks transport goods, their echoes resonating through the night. It's in this chaotic environment that a vampire-themed restaurant boldly emerges. "Have you ever encountered a vampire?" Samuel inquired. His friend shook his head, admitting to only hearing tales from acquaintances. Samuel chuckled at his friend's response, questioning how he could place so much trust in stories without first-hand experience. Merely relying on hearsay isn't always reliable, as even a fleeting shadow can be mistaken for a vampire by the faint-hearted. Upon returning from dining out, Samuel made his way back home. Initially finding it difficult to sleep, he managed to wake up slightly earlier and arrived at his in-laws' residence around 8:30 in the morning. He planned to head back after daybreak, ensuring he kept his promise to his wife to return promptly if there were no other pressing matters. Otherwise, he aimed to be there by 8:30 the following morning. Driven by his conscience, Samuel opted to spend the night at his in-laws' place. Before heading there, he stopped by my house, arriving around midnight. He knew I wouldn't mind the late visit, so he simply greeted me from his car, not stepping inside despite my invitation. Samuel expressed his desire to go back tonight as well, but my wife interrupted, informing us that he was told to come back tomorrow. Samuel, with a grin on his face, jokingly remarked about returning his face, implying that people might have negative reactions if they saw him the next day. I asked him if he would be returning alone, to which he replied affirmatively without getting out of the car. He reminded me not to worry and assured me that he would come tomorrow, as he didn't want to sour the faces of our family members. His wife, Sarah, had extended a strong invitation for me to attend her sister's wedding. which is why she urged Samuel to bring our family along if he returned on Sunday morning. Sarah herself preferred Samuel to come back on Sunday rather than Saturday afternoon. Initially, Samuel had planned to return on Sunday morning, but he realized that leaving at 6 a.m. would not be ideal for inviting me along. He was concerned that if he arrived at 10 a.m., he would be accused of not caring about his wife's family. This was the predicament he found himself in. I agreed to go alone the next day, as our families had a good relationship, and it was important to fulfill their request. As we stopped in front of the door, I reminded Samuel to drive slowly and carefully, urging him to rest if he felt sleepy during the night. I wanted to ensure that he didn't panic and rush to get there quickly. He admitted and agreed to my suggestion. As Samuel departed from my home, he didn't head anywhere specific, but instead retraced his steps along the highway. The clock had already struck past midnight. The air was chilly, and only a few vehicles were passing by. A light drizzle began to fall, making Samuel cautious about driving too fast in fear of the road becoming slippery. He always heeded my advice about not speeding while behind the wheel, even on open roads at night. There was no need to rush, especially when there was no urgent destination to reach. If he aimed to make it to the wedding ceremony, it was long over by 10 p.m. Upon reaching his wife's village, everyone was fast asleep, except for a few boys playing in the pool who stayed up to deter any potential intruders. The rain persisted throughout the journey, with some cars speeding past Samuel's vehicle, prompting him to ponder about driving a faster car. The straight highway was dimly lit, and the BMW that overtook him vanished into the distance. Just as he was grumbling about the reckless driver, a daring young man on a motorcycle, clad in a black jacket, swiftly cut in front of him, disappearing into the night at a breakneck speed despite the rain. Frustrated and annoyed, he muttered about the reckless motorcyclist who had zoomed past him in the heavy rain and darkness of the night. The motorcycle had vanished into the obscurity, leaving his car far behind, possibly due to its excessive speed or the lack of visibility caused by the relentless downpour. Through the faint glow of his car's headlights, the raindrops appeared to delicately cascade down the windshield, hindering his vision of the road ahead. Despite the late hour, other vehicles still passed by, requiring him to remain cautious, especially in areas where road repairs were underway. Driving at night demanded keen observation. Samuel, however, was not feeling drowsy. To combat sleepiness, he switched on the radio, hoping to catch a brief news update or listen to some entertaining songs. Just as he passed a junction, the illumination from his car's lights revealed a young man stranded with a broken motorcycle. It dawned on Samuel that this was the same motorcyclist who had cut him off earlier. "Please, brother, help me," pleaded the young man, expressing his desire to hitch a ride in Samuel's car until the third junction. Initially, Samuel harbored suspicions when he encountered individuals disguised as robbers seeking assistance, only to be ambushed by his friends waiting in the middle of the road. Despite falling victim to this ruse, his apprehension shifted when a young man approached him, revealing himself as a member of the city police force in need of a ride due to a broken-down motorbike. Samuel hesitated, unsure if he should trust this stranger. But the young man seemed to understand his thoughts and quickly reassured him, "Don't worry, I'm not a troublemaker." As he opened his black jacket, revealing his city police uniform, Samuel's doubts began to fade away. It was clear that this young man was indeed a police officer. With his confidence restored, Samuel allowed him to join him on his journey. Before they set off, the young man insisted on securing his motorcycle. "Wait a moment. I'll just park it by the side of the road," he said with a mischievous grin, revealing his slightly crooked teeth. He carefully maneuvered the bike into an alley where fruit vendors were selling their goods, ensuring its safety. Once he was satisfied, he hopped into Samuel's car. "On nights like this, it's hard to find a motorcycle mechanic," he lamented, extending his hand for a handshake. "My name is Galen. I take this road every day to get to work," he explained, adjusting his uniform shirt. Samuel introduced himself and asked where Galen was headed. "Just heading back home," Samuel replied. As they drove, Samuel couldn't help but feel relieved that Galen was indeed a city policeman and not a robber. Riding a motorcycle at night like this "I'm not afraid of robbers," Galen said with a grin, revealing his loose teeth. Samuel couldn't help but chuckle, realizing that he had misjudged the situation. Samuel pondered, "What keeps you up at night, Galen?" However, Galen remained silent, his head swaying in sync with the melody playing on the radio. Samuel, seeking reassurance, repeated his question, "What are you afraid of?" It was only natural to worry about potential robbers while driving at night, as they could be lurking anywhere along the deserted road during their long journey. In the event of a robbery, immediate help would be hard to come by, and if their car broke down, they would have to search for assistance. Perhaps the highway patrol would be around, but they were unlikely to detect such incidents. "Aren't you afraid of robbers?" Samuel inquired once more. Galen nodded and replied, "No, I'm not afraid." However, he confessed his fear of encountering ghosts, as they were ethereal beings that posed a different kind of threat. "Don't believe in those superstitious notions, Galen," Samuel advised, trying to dispel Galen's fears. Galen fell silent, his gaze fixed on the raindrop-covered car mirror. Suddenly, he spoke slowly, as if recalling something. "My friend had an accident near that intersection. He was riding my motorcycle one night." Galen's grin revealed his jagged, rusty teeth, and the foul odor emanating from his mouth filled the air. Samuel nodded, his eyes also fixed on the raindrop-speckled mirror. Occasionally, he glanced at Galen, a mocking smile playing on his lips, as if taunting the young man's unwavering belief in superstitions. In fact, Samuel had been exposed to such superstitious tales since their visit to the restaurant. Even when accompanied by Galen, the gap-toothed young man, Samuel remained steadfast in his refusal to believe in such things. "Close to that crossroads, there's a ghost that always lurks," Galen insisted, trying to sway Samuel. "A woman detained my friend there. He gave her a ride on my motorbike," he continued. Samuel chuckled upon hearing the tale from the young man with missing teeth beside him. Perhaps the young man was trying to spook him on purpose, or maybe he truly believed in supernatural tales. Samuel felt the urge to scold Galen, but he didn't want to dampen the spirits of his new friend. "After that, he smelled really nice," he remarked, not bothering to glance at the car mirror speckled with raindrops. "And that woman is quite a prankster," he added, laughing until his breath turned foul. Samuel had heard Galen recount this story numerous times. Earlier, during dinner at the restaurant, his friend who came with the contractor also shared a similar tale about a woman riding his friend's motorbike wanting to return. As they neared the cemetery, a sweet fragrance filled the air. Then the woman on the motorbike vanished into thin air. This caused his friend to crash the motorbike into a rock by the roadside. Galen had a comparable story, albeit with a different setting. His friend also tumbled and collided with the roadside after the woman fainted, only to disappear like smoke dissipating into the air. His friend spent a week bedridden in the general hospital following the motorbike accident, and since then, the motorbike has been undergoing constant repairs. However, Galen remained nonchalant. If his motorbike broke down in the dead of night on his way back from work, he would simply leave it by the roadside and check on it the next day. He wasn't concerned about the possibility of theft. As long as the motorbike remained functional, he saw no reason to replace it with a new one. As Samuel listened to Galen, he couldn't help but feel grateful for his presence. In these tough times, money was hard to come by, and Galen's offer to use the motorcycle and repair it if needed was a relief. Samuel agreed with Galen's opinion that it was better to repair the motorcycle if it could still be used, but if the damage was too severe, it would be wise to change it if they had enough money. In a time when every penny counted, Samuel understood the importance of prioritizing expenses for more beneficial things. Meeting Galen on the street was unexpected, but it brought a sense of companionship that Samuel appreciated. Galen was not only a stranger, but also someone to chat with, even if their conversations mostly revolved around horror tales. As they approached the junction, Galen insisted that Samuel didn't need to accompany him all the way to his house, but Samuel volunteered to do so anyway. Galen thanked him and assured him that his house was just near the intersection. Samuel playfully teased Galen, asking if he was afraid of vampire. Galen laughed and responded with a witty remark about marrying a vampire if she happened to be a girl. Samuel found Galen's sense of humor endearing and realized that he had found a good friend in him. He was eager to hear more of Galen's stories and get to know him better. The junction lies just 500 meters ahead, a mere stone's throw away. Samuel's heart ached with compassion as he contemplated dropping off Galen at the head of the junction. Why should he hesitate to lend a helping hand to a fellow human in need? The night had already descended, casting its dark veil upon the world, and the rain poured relentlessly. Galen, the mischievous lad, seemed like he wanted to play a prank on him, with his friends lurking at the junction's entrance. But what did Galen truly desire to snatch away from him? Robbers, too, do not choose their victims at random. They carefully select those who have been marked. They know exactly how much treasure awaits them once they apprehend their prey. That's why Samuel was willing to escort Galen to the town, for it was not far from the junction. Once Galen was safely delivered, he could return to his wife's village. "I can give you a ride, especially on such a rainy day," Samuel offered when he spotted the sign indicating the junction just 500 meters away. "No worries, brother. Your kindness knows no bounds. Just drop me off at the head of the junction," Galen humbly replied. "Aren't you afraid of encountering a ghost there?" Samuel playfully teased, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "I've grown accustomed to these apparitions, brother," Galen burst into laughter. "Have you ever laid eyes on a ghost?" Samuel casually inquired. "Oh, it was ages ago, brother," Galen chuckled, still amused. "What did it look like?" Samuel prodded, his curiosity piqued once more. "Just as I am," Galen chuckled. Samuel turned to face Galen, who claimed a ghost resembled him. His laughter grew louder, but it lacked its previous joviality. Samuel's heart raced as he observed Galen, noticing a putrid smell emanating from the young man, eyes blazing like fire, sunken cheekbones, blood-stained patches in his hair, and a skull-like appearance. Samuel gazed at Galen in disbelief. Unable to maintain control of his car, he collided with a road divider, causing the vehicle to somersault 5 or 6 times. The following day, while attending Sarah's sister's wedding with my family, news arrived that Samuel had been in an accident on his way home the previous night. Despite his hospitalization, the wedding proceeded. After the ceremony, Sarah and I visited Samuel in the hospital. Upon my arrival, Samuel was conscious, able to speak despite his legs being immobilized and his head bandaged. He recounted his ordeal, reflecting on the superstitions he had heard. While narrating his experience, he seemed incredulous at what he had witnessed. "It all feels like a dream," he murmured, masking his pain. I simply smiled, understanding the difficulty of sharing such encounters with others. Only those who have lived through similar events can truly comprehend. Some claim the spot where I encountered the boy is haunted by those who died in motorcycle accidents. A few others have encountered similar phenomena, Samuel lamented, regretting his impulsive decision to return that fateful night. I nodded in agreement, for with Samuel, nothing seemed beyond the realm of possibility. Everything unfolds with the will of God,